Hi everyone, and welcome back to The Business Edge. I'll be your host, Erin Blake. In this episode, George Garcia, alumnus of the Feliciano School of Business and co-founder of WePaste, will be discussing the tech and startup industry. George, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And let's get started.
Thank you for having me here today on the Business Edge podcast. I'm really excited to talk about startups in the tech industry as a whole. Being an alumnus of the Feliciano School of Business, it's really special for me to come back and be able to be on their podcast. So thank you for this opportunity. My business, WePaste, was founded out of the Entrepreneurship Center, and we were actually funded through the pitch competition that the Center for Entrepreneurship holds. And it was a really special experience and a really great time. And I'm so happy to come back and share what I've learned since then and share my insight on the industry and some of the things that are going on there. I'm here to talk about startups and tech as a whole, and more specifically, I'm going to talk about some of the IPOs that we're seeing lately. I'm going to talk about some of the startup trends that are happening right now. I'm going to talk about privacy and tech and government, which is a really big hot button issue right now. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about the New Jersey startup scene as well. So I'll just get right into it with the IPOs. We actually have a big IPO today in Slack that is listing through a direct listing as we speak. Slack, as many people know, is a workplace messaging platform that is essentially trying to make email a thing of the past. So actually Slack is a special IPO for me because my team uses Slack, and it's really a product that's used in startups all over the world right now. It's basically an essential. It's as essential as Gmail is, or as QuickBooks is, or even as Photoshop and Illustrator. It's really something that businesses can't really function without today. Slack makes it so easy to just instantly communicate with your team, and that's why I think it's going to be a successful IPO and it's going to be a successful stock in the next few years. Slack is transforming the workplace in a fundamental way. The CEO wants to eliminate emails from the way that we do business, and I think that's a really awesome goal, and I'm excited to see Slack progress.
It's really funny that you brought that up because right before you came in and we started, this podcast and discussion, I just signed up to create my own Slack account. So I am interested in, creating different groups, I guess it is. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like for a podcast group so I can chat with, my coworkers. So how do you use it for WePaste?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The teams and the channels that you can create are really just they're good for both operational stuff and they're good for culture building as well. I think that's a good point, the podcast one, and maybe you'll have a video one or something like that. We have some of our most used ones are just a general chat. We have a daily team talk where we just share daily updates and weekly updates. We have a reading one if a teammate reads something and wants to share it with the team. Really, the possibilities are endless, and it really just points to how good of a product Slack is. It's so wide-ranging, and you can use it so simply. It connects to your phone, and it has integration with Google Drive and all these things. I'm really big on the Slack IPO.
Oh, I look forward to using it.
Some other IPOs that we've seen lately, obviously Uber and Lyft. Those are some of the the biggest of the year that people had their eyes on. Uber is now a $80 billion plus company after IPO, and we know the struggles that they've had since IPOing, and Lyft as well. There's big questions about their financial stability, and that's something that I think points to a larger trend in the IPO world right now, and the startup world of these huge valuations coming into the stock market and people saying, okay, where are the numbers to back it up? My personal thoughts on that is I think that in the long run that those IPOs may actually hurt smaller startups, and it may prevent us from getting money and going and seeking funds in the future. Something to keep an eye on. I don't think that the money's not going to dry up immediately. There's always going to be money there for startups to find and to get funded. But I think the more we see the Ubers and the Lyfts and even the Snapchats of the past, I think we're going to start to see that trend happen a little more, where it just pumps up before the listing and then it just hits the ground after that. I think something that's really interesting too in the world of IPOs, not necessarily in the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, but I was reading up recently, a few weeks ago, there was a new stock exchange that got approved for doing business. I believe it was in San Francisco or out somewhere in California, where it's made for startups to really go public. It's made for those companies who are maybe struggling a little financially, but have a really strong long-term vision to come and participate in, and to get investors who see that long-term vision and who care about the company's mission and the work that they're doing. So I think that we're in a really interesting place with the IPOs and startups going public. I'm interested to see how it plays out. Aside from Uber and Lyft and Slack, we had some other big ones this year. Beyond Meat was a really strong one. And then later in the year, we're potentially going to see Peloton, and we're going to see WeWork go public, which are some really interesting products and services there. As we know, WeWork is a huge company right now. They're burning money like crazy, but they're growing like crazy, and they're the name in co-working. So that'll be an interesting one. Peloton, people love their Pelotons. We know the advocates out there for Peloton are really strong, just like Tesla advocates and Apple fans and advocates. Peloton has that same army working for them. So that'll be an interesting one to see.
Do you think that Peloton and WeWork will get to the same level as like a Tesla or an Apple?
I think it remains to be seen. I think, they're always going to have, just like Tesla, they're going to have those financial issues. They're always going to be burning through cash. What I think Peloton and WeWork both have going for them is that they are creating kind of an ecosystem of products and an ecosystem of services. So Peloton, they're doing the treadmill and the bike, and I believe they're expanding, their live classes and the connectivity. So, creating that ecosystem like Apple has with the iMessage and the FaceTime, I think that's a model that if they follow, they'll be safe. I think WeWork is doing the same thing. Now they're doing We Live, and they're doing schools for younger children that are non-traditional learning experiences. So building that culture and that ecosystem, I think it really builds strong brands, and it pays dividends down the line, because your business isn't only co-working, and it's not only a bike, and it's not only ride sharing, or it's not only, inter-business messaging or, community messaging, whatever you call it. Building that ecosystem is a really big deal.
I think that's really well said, because we see with Apple right now, and I'm sure you've seen in the news, they're getting rid of, iTunes,
mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
you want to touch upon that?
Yeah. Apple getting rid of iTunes is an interesting one. I have to put my cards on the table. I'm a big Apple fanboy. I got my Apple Watch, I got my iPhone, I got my MacBook, I got my AirPods. I love Apple products, so I am a little biased, but I think that they're the gold standard in creating that ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
They did it first with their products, with the all the products I just listed. They all work together seamlessly, and then now they're doing it with the services. They did it with iMessage and FaceTime, and they did some things that you can only do with iPhone. Creating that ecosystem. But now they're doing it on another scale with services, with the News Plus subscription model. They're doing the Apple TV subscription model. They're doing Apple Gaming subscription. So it all points back to that. How quickly and how vastly can we make our ecosystem, and how many devices and how many different niches can we get into, and really tie them all together in one offering. Just like a quick thing on also mergers and acquisitions. We've seen some big M&A recently. Tableau, I believe, was bought by Salesforce, which is a big deal. And then also Drive AI was just bought last week by Apple. I think we're seeing a lot of, I think there's three main areas where we're seeing some mergers and acquisitions. One of them being the data side of things with Tableau. One of them being the AI side of things with Drive AI, but also another being the audio side of things. So with the podcasting, you see Gimlet and Anchor. Spotify's investing heavily in podcasts. Apple's obviously been killing it with their podcast offerings. Recently, I just was reading some speculative articles recently saying it's not too unlikely that in the future Apple has exclusive podcasts, just like Netflix has exclusive series. So I think we have a lot of interesting trends coming up, and also one of the bigger trends that I wasn't even planning on talking about today, but it came up yesterday, is Facebook launching its own cryptocurrency. The blockchain and crypto is a huge deal. And I think that I was actually talking to my friend Sam last night. Shout out to Sam if he's listening. We were on Fortnite last night, and we were just talking about Facebook's new cryptocurrency, and it's called Libra. And we think that is going to be the cryptocurrency that brings crypto transactions to the mainstream. Facebook is launching it along with 15 to 20 other large companies. They have some backing from some large, really famous, fabled VCs. So, if anybody can do it, and if anybody can reach those 1.7 billion unbanked people in the world, I would say it would be Facebook, because those people are probably using Facebook, or they're using Instagram, or they're using WhatsApp. So I think there's a lot of really interesting and exciting trends in the startup and tech world right now. My next topic is going to be tech and government. We know that tech is under a big spotlight right now on Capitol Hill and in Congress, doing all these different hearings on different topics. And even with the upcoming elections, we've even seen some Democratic presidential candidates calling for the breakup of some of the big tech companies like Google's and Facebook's of the world. And I think we're in a really interesting spot with that tech and government relationship. And I think that whatever decisions are being made now and are being made on Capitol Hill, and whatever hearings are being held, they're really consequential. And I think that we want to make sure that we are fostering that culture of innovation and fostering those market-driven solutions rather than just regulating things. Google is so strong because Google has done a great job through search and through creating other really good products through the years, and Facebook as well. I will say, however, though, they do have to button up their stuff on the privacy side of things. We can't have another election hacking, and we can't have people's data being breached with the vast amounts of data that we have out there. But also on the other side of things, consumers as well need to know what data they're sharing, and make sure that they know their privacy settings. I would say Google and Facebook try to do a really good job, and I'm just picking on those two just because they're the two biggest right now, but they try to do a really good job of being upfront about what data they have. But it's up to consumers to really understand that and make sure that they know what they're sharing and who they're sharing with, where they're being tracked. And then maybe we won't have these problems where these big American companies have to get shut down or have to get broken up because of privacy issues. I certainly would not be an advocate of breaking up big tech. I think that they do a lot of good. They foster a lot of innovation, and as many, for every one Google out there, there's 10 other, there's probably 1,000 other startups out there trying to take them down and trying to work on the same products and beat them at it, and potentially even are doing it. Gmail is Google's number one product right now, but you see startups like Superhuman trying to rethink email, and then you see the Slacks, like we talked about before, just trying to wipe Gmail off the map. So I think it's really interesting. I'm a big advocate of the market-driven solutions to these privacy things. If you don't like the way that Google and Facebook are handling their privacy, or handling your data and handling everything that they have on you, just don't use the services. You can untie those from your browser. I know it's probably a little tougher to untie Google from your digital life because they're everywhere and they're ad tracking everywhere. But there are alternatives, and I think that the I would say renaissance of big tech should come from consumers, and it should come from users rather than from the government. And then my last topic would really just kind of be the New Jersey startup scene. So being a startup in New Jersey, I guess I'm in a unique place to talk about this. And also being a part of one of the handful of entrepreneurship centers in New Jersey, I've really gotten to see an inside look at New Jersey startups and really meet some cool people around here. I would say that, this isn't the State of the Union, but I would say the state of New Jersey startups, I think it's getting stronger. I think for years our innovation was lacking over here, but I would say that in the past year and a half, you've really started to see it pick up with a lot of these tech meetups, Morris Tech Meetup and NJ Tech Meetup and NJ Tech Council and Propellify Festival. A lot of really good events happening around here right now, where there's entrepreneurs and founders coming from all over the state and out of state coming into New Jersey to share what they're working on. I think that even this current administration, I think, has done a really good job in New Jersey of creating economic opportunities for startups through the Co-Vest Fund, through the Economic Development Authority. There's a lot of co-working spaces out there right now popping up all over the place in New Jersey. Newark Venture Partners is doing some really good things over here. I believe they actually just had an exit recently. One of their portfolio companies, Bowtie. I saw that come across that they had an exit. So I think there's a lot of good things happening in New Jersey. New Jersey is never going to be Silicon Valley. It's never going to be New York City, Silicon Alley. It's just going to be New Jersey. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity here for startups, especially with the health and biotech and biopharma, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm bullish on the New Jersey startup scene.
So if our listeners are looking to form their own entrepreneurial mindset, what would you recommend that they start looking at or joining?
We're living in a time where there's so many resources out there where anybody can be an entrepreneur, anybody can be a founder. I would say go on meetup.com, just sign up for some tech meetups, go and meet some people. You may find your next co-founder. You may share an idea with somebody who is working on something similar. You may find an opportunity there. I would also say make sure that you're constantly learning and keeping up on the news of what's going on in the startup world. One of my favorite methods to do that is just through daily newsletters. I get these daily newsletters from Axios, and I get one from Owler, as it's called, and then Crunchbase. There's so many sources of information out there, and they all have their own take and their own spin on things, and it's really nice to get a good, wide, diverse view of what's going on in the startup world and the tech world. Make sure that you're doing your own research too. If somebody's, I talked about Slack, and I talked about Spotify, and I talked about the Co-Vest Fund and Google and the calls to break up big tech. Go do your own research on that stuff. I think that there's so much information, there's so much to be had out there, and I think too, on top of that, there's a lot of opportunity there in starting your own business. I think there's so many opportunities to get involved.
And I think a big part of it too is just not being afraid to take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what that's like. So do you want to touch upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I think taking a chance is it's part of that entrepreneurial mindset, and it's part of forming it. And I really think it's the first step into forming an entrepreneurial mindset, just taking that step into, whether it's taking that class or it's going and shaking that person's hand across the room at the tech meetup, or it's going down to the Entrepreneurship Center down here at Montclair State like I did, and just talking to them for a few minutes and seeing what you can learn. I think just having the confidence in yourself to take that next step, and whether it's a confidence in yourself or it's in an idea or it's in your co-founders or teammates or just maybe hey, I want to meet someone new. Taking that step is just a really big thing, and you're not going to get out anywhere without taking that first step. So I encourage you all to take that first step.
Is there any other advice that you'd like to give our listeners who are looking to become the next big entrepreneur?
Well, if there's advice on becoming the next big entrepreneur, I would be looking for that advice. But for all the entrepreneurs out there, I would just echo that same thing. Take that opportunity. Don't say no. Just say yes as often as you can. I'm on this podcast because Feliciano School of Business posted an Instagram post, and I said, how can I get involved? And now I'm here talking to you guys. So take that next step, go where people won't, and you'll do just fine.
George, thank you so much for being here today, and congratulations on your recent graduation.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of luck, and especially with Wheat Paste, we look forward to see where you're going to go with that. Great things ahead. So that's it for today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed the topic. As always, please email your topics of interest to felicianobiz@montclair.edu or message us on social media. New discussions will be released soon, so be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. The Business Edge is brought to you by the Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. Until next time, I'm Erin Blake, and thank you for listening.